situation. And then seeking any other information in the full BCP document. So the CMT should then ask the BC facilitator to say, okay, we now actually have a quick look at the overall plan because we haven't seen it for a while, and we want to make sure that what we're deciding here is in line with those strategies. So what is in there, for example, is your BCP on a page, or it could be at the back of this kind of card where the crisis management team can also quickly have a look at the BCP on a page to see what was the initial workarounds that were agreed. All right, and then phase 2 and 3, they basically continue to work from the CCR, from the crisis control room, and provide leadership throughout the rest of the incident. So they don't actually get dissembled. The CMT continues their work during the actual incident and provide leadership, etc. So hopefully that makes some sense. And this may look like, fairly extensive, but actually it's pretty concise and it's easy to tick the boxes. A lot of these things in here are not naturally what they would think about straight away themselves. Some things, yes, but most of these things they'll be reactive to. Things like media inquiries. You find that a lot of CMTs, they don't think about that until the first call from the media comes in, and then it's kind of too late to come up with what you want to say. So this checklist, if they straight away have that in front of them, somehow either saved on smartphones or whatever, or you provide it in a kit for them, or you put it on SharePoint as part of their kit, you want this to be available to them, to that CMT to start working through these questions in a logical way, and we put it in a sort of a logical sequence. I notice, I'm just going to look again at what you guys wrote. Yeah, updates on recovery efforts. Yeah, of course, and that's getting updates from the community facilitator, for example. All those things you can add. You can make this slightly longer, but the actual power of this kind of document is the fact that it's an A5, so half an A4, and maybe at the back it has a key contact list, and then there's other two sections. Maybe it could be your BCP on a page and a process flow. That could be the card for the crisis management team, that they have the entire process literally on one page. Very, very good to do, and very insightful actually, because the content is very powerful. It's not like empty, it's not like a one-pager that has only fluff in it. This is really actionable kind of points. Yeah, I hope you enjoy hearing me say some of these things, because I can see you guys have worked on this kind of material before, or quite a few of you have, and so I'm also here to validate what you have and to help you with any missing points, things that you maybe hadn't thought about. And hopefully there'll be at least 3 or 4 points in this kind of chart, in this kind of list, that you already know, hey, this is handy, I can use this, or I will action this down the track. So next step is our last major step of the wheel. There's going to be a last mini step, which is the maintenance of all the steps together. But this one, step 8, is quite a substantial, important thing at least. And we're going to do some practical work in that step as well. So testing and awareness. Yeah, we always put in our world, we always in my company, we put testing, exercises, awareness, and training all in one step, because we find testing and rehearsals are actually the best way to train people. If you just do training on little, I don't know, desktop tools or flyers or brochures, or PowerPoint presentations, it's one way, and people are not actually participating and grabbing that plan and doing something with it. So we find that you have to get staff, who are in those roles, but also the general staff, get them some practical experience. So that's what that's about. And the defining predetermined objectives of testing is important. You can have any of these kind of reasons why you want to conduct testing. So please read these and see what resonates with you. And especially the last one is important, because you want staff to gain hands-on experience, especially BCP team members, any of the 9 teams, people who need to play that role. You want them to get that hands-on experience in working with limited facilities. Many staff, they think a DR site, would be something super luxury, and they will have the espressos and everything else coming out, but it may not be like that, And from working from home, they've experienced that it cannot always be perfect either. with COVID. But down the track, you might find that there's certain things that need to be done as a group in a particular location, especially those people who work in warehouses and who deal with fulfillment. If there's an alternate site that they're going to do this from, they're going to still be working together, but usually not as much luxury as in their main site. So they need to get that hands-on experience. And then the next section is about the different types or means of testing. Technical tests are one thing. They're fairly, well, you can make it fairly risk averse, with the technical testing on ICT. You can do system by system, for example. But what you want down the track is also integrate some of those and do some integrated testing, because many systems feed off other people, of other systems, and many systems are feeding on other systems too. As in they're dependent on other systems. So you may have a reporting system that actually gets fed by 2 or 3 other systems that actually interface with those. And if you're doing technical ICT DR sort of testing, you want to integrate some of that and see if the integration also works in disaster recovery mode. Then choosing appropriate means and types of testing. Demo and training exercises we haven't talked about yet in this context. Things like media training, media liaison training could be useful. Using pictures, videos. When you do desktop exercises, I've actually facilitated probably 150 or 200 of those by now. We use a lot of fake news videos. We use things like role plays, actors, and challenge cards, like unrelated sort of challenges people have to deal with during the rehearsal. And yeah, it's really useful to do that, and also take some people out as observers, especially those with a critical role. If you say, hey, you've gone fishing, or hey, you're not there because you're stuck in the flood, and see, and not cut them out of the exercise, give them a hat or a little label or a sticker or something that shows that they're observer for that point, from that point onward. So don't remove people from the exercise scope, but actually give them the observer role from time to time, so that the others have to step in, and find other ways. So that's how you can make exercise a little bit more fun and energizing. And yeah, that usually creates quite a lot of motivational kind of benefits. When people are enjoying their rehearsals and exercises, you find there's a lot more energy in the whole process. You also find the post-exercise tasks or actions or roadmap that you agreed on. There's more chance that actually gets done if people found the exercise well run. And there's more inspiration also for doing re-rehearsals and retesting. Because when you do a test and you find gaps in your process or in your documents, you're going to then fix those gaps. And what you ideally should do is then retest and maybe not wait for a whole year with that. So you need quite a few people involved and being happy with what you're doing, and that you can actually continue that for the future as well. And people will come to those sessions more likely if they're enjoying what you're doing. Choosing appropriate means and types of testing. We talked about now 2 things. Yeah, the next thing is desktop simulations and role plays, very similar to the previous one, which was all about demo and training exercises. This one is more about discussing interdependencies, walkthroughs, and what my advice is on seniority. When it comes to testing and walkthroughs and simulations and that, I find sometimes for the fun sessions and the really interesting sessions, people invite only a specific level of people. So let's say the senior management representatives of each department, or only hands-on staff, to participate in a really fun hands-on exercise. But the real power comes in when you're able to combine the two, when you have one senior and one junior representative from each division, from each department or division. And we've run training up to 35, 40 people in one room. Now, when it gets to Zoom and WebEx and doing sessions and rehearsals on that sort of system, you've got to maybe reduce it a little bit, because otherwise people don't feel comfortable asking questions and coming up with ideas. But it's certainly doable, even on Zoom, to go for 20, 25, we found, to actually perform that. So I'm saying Zoom, but you know what I mean, like a video call. And especially if you've got breakout functionality like we have with this WebEx training situation, you know, you can actually, really subgroup them and get them to go through quite a lot of experience there. You could also think about doing notification plan testing. So that would be just a dedicated test only on your notification tool. And whether you use SMS blasting or something more advanced, you know, we implement a lot with organizations, we implement a lot of two-way kind of tools, like where staff get a message, a notification of an incident, and they can respond with 1 or 2 or 3, and that indicates if they're safe or if they need help, for example. And that's a report that actually comes through straight away, real time on, you know, the DC facilitator teams, phones or laptops or whatever. So it saves a lot of time, because what I find is many organizations find their team leaders and managers are overloaded, making calls all day long during an incident. They have to brief everybody. There's no stop to it, basically. They never go to bed, and it's not a good thing. So the way you can streamline that with tools, like I mentioned earlier, the two-way, you know, the tools that actually include acknowledgement functionality, and where you then direct staff to something like a centralized incident website or blog. So the first notification goes to them and they have to accept, and in the next notification you'll put a hyperlink to that blog site, for example, where they can keep themselves informed. Because all that notification, it takes a lot of time, like I said, and if staff know that there's one place they should actually go and find the info, you can actually ask them to go in there for, let's say, every hour and keep track of what's happening. Another aspect of choosing appropriate means and types of testing is live exercises. Possible aspects you can put in include things like, you know, the role of external suppliers, fire wardens, first aiders. You know, you could have recovery site facilities being tested, and all of that you could put in a live context. It's sometimes a bit of a challenge, but I think it's a great idea from time to time to add certain live elements to your testing. And you can put as a scope one business unit or process, several processes, or full organization-wide exercise, or even an industry-wide or international type exercise. So if you're the initiator of that, that's a really cool thing to do. I can imagine Patronus, for example, initiating a test or rehearsal where all their key external suppliers or partners are also in that test, and you can actually simulate that together, and you could be maybe the leader of the rehearsal if you're Patronus. The same for the water plant, you know, with Christopher. You know, you could imagine you guys are having a lot of interaction with other partners and smaller suppliers and so on. So if you were the initiator of that kind of rehearsal, desktop rehearsal, that would be really interesting to do. Then choosing a relevant and feasible scenario, very important, very important. I have had sessions where I've observed sessions, they were not mine, thank goodness, where people just came up with the most stupid scenarios. Sorry to say stupid, but you know, in that context, I've seen people test almost for Godzilla or killer bees or aliens, or, well, I'm saying now a bit of jokingly, you know, but killer bees, I've actually seen people test that. And the whole group of all the executives were sitting there going, killer bees? This has happened once in the last 37 years in Sydney, you know, like there was a bee attack, you know, bees, those things that can attack people with their little insects, you know, but that stuff is, yeah, they're just crazy scenarios that people will not buy into unless you do something special with it and make it really fun. But then, it's still, I would really recommend you to stick with scenarios that people can imagine, or that they can extrapolate to, that would be in the realm of possibility. And of course, things like the black swan scenarios, like the Twin Towers and all of that in America, that didn't survive, you know, 2003, 2001, 2001, no, 2003. You know, those sorts of scenarios, yeah, people can't imagine that might happen whilst it did happen. Yeah, but for your testing, it's pretty gutsy and courageous to use that kind of scenario, because if there is a risk, people stare at you going, this is ridiculous, you know, I'm not participating in this test, it's a waste of my time because the scenario is so not valid. So be smart with that, and be very smart with your sensible surprise elements. So if you're doing anything like role plays or actor calls or any scripted transactions that are supposed to look real, but actually they're fake. You know, they're not actually from real clients, but you want staff to test based on that mock transaction. Make it really clear that that particular transaction or phone call or whatever, make sure they're always labeled with this is a test or this is part of our BCP test, because people will sometimes take it serious. I've had once, and that was an organization that said, you know, they basically needed us to come in and craft their exercise, because the last one, they had a lot of issues where they had scripted certain transactions on the systems, and the staff had been you know, keeping those transaction papers sitting around on the desks. And on Monday, after the test had been done on the weekend, on Monday, other staff came in and thought it was real, and nothing was labeled as mock or test or anything. So yeah, you've got to be really careful with that and not have that happening. This is an example of a sheet that can help you detect or determine, I should say, identify scenarios that actually are touching on different levels of impact. So with this one, we were asked by an organization to come up with scenarios that had no impact on IT, but that required a staff evacuation, because they wanted to test an evacuation live, and they wanted to test, not test their IT because that had already been done a few times. So they basically asked for that, and we came up with all these crazy scenarios here on the left. But in the end, they were not so crazy. I mean, gas leaks have happened, chemical spill outside the building, asbestos in the building plant room. All these things have happened, you know, to a certain degree, to them or to their direct, you know, competitors. Anthrax scare, you know, white powder incidents, and we also talked about hostage situations and criminal situations. In the end, we actually used the dead body found compared to bombs, combined with bomb scare, and it initially was seen as, oh my goodness, this will never happen, and then when we tested it, it was actually really good, because there was no real process for it. If people found someone who was not breathing, you know, in the toilet, for example, or somewhere, you know, in the building, and actually what the process would be, and that in the end was tested really well, and people found it useful. So sometimes you don't know what comes out of some of these brainstorm sessions, and you might find a really interesting scenario, even though it sounds all a little bit crazy. So it's all about a little bit about feeling. If you're running these things, then you probably get a sense for it. Just like with the business continuity planning that we did in step 3 and inviting people into your teams, the same applies to testing. You know, you want to start testing where you invite sometimes a customer along, or maybe a business continuity manager in a surrounding building, or maybe a critical supplier or competitor. So think about how that would go over in the future, because it gives you a lot more insight than just doing your own nitty-gritty navel gazing exercises. You know, you want to actually make sure that you can see how, how things function, you know, when you're doing that in partnership with others. This is a couple of tips. What I'm sharing next is some tips on how to make things routine events, like how to make people more used to the fact that testing is happening. And also, I'm going to share with you a test template. The test template really is for you to look at, you know, maybe if you're reviewing these videos of this course down the track, and actually use it at that point, because there's got a lot of detail in there. But making testing and training regular and routine events. Here you can see a couple of strategies. A lot of them link to making things realistic, like use real topics that are happening that day. Maybe all the news is full of something that has happened. That's when you want to actually use that kind of scenario on the same day, perhaps, or in that same week, you know, to actually do a test. And there's a few other things in there: sending plan, updating reminders, focus sessions. And a lot of it is about emphasizing the safety of staff being a main objective. Yeah, that's your primary objective, so that you can get people involved in testing and becomes more second nature to them. Okay, measuring the success of your exercise. The first question, I guess, is, before showing that, when is a test successful? What do you consider to be a successful test? And I'd love to hear from you guys in the chat. So please fire away. What comes to mind first? You know, so please type in the chat. What do you think should be the definition of a successful test? Just one line, please. And don't hold back. Just dump it in there. We're all here to learn. You don't have to be good, well, perfect at anything. Within the stipulated time limit. That's the first answer. Ibrahim gets the virtual chocolates. Amina, I should say. Amina, I'm getting very confused, sorry. The letters are super small in the chat, so I'm trying to read. Amina was getting the virtual chocolate for this afternoon. Everyone is not confused on the steps to be taken. Yeah, very good answer too. Let's get a few more answers on this. When is a test considered successful? The result of the test as per the target. Let's get one more answer. Business units are able to execute all processes based on the test script successfully. Information well received by all levels of staff. Yeah, I really like the comments that are around the actual information and comfort level of staff to act upon their role. Doing it perfectly is actually not so important. Every test that has been going perfectly, I actually would say I had two concerns. One concern was the people were not challenged enough. We tested too many times the same type of scenario, or the scenario was too easy. If the results are perfect, usually my experience is the scenario was too predictable or too easy to deal with. And the second thing is, when you're talking about perfect testing, you know, the scenario not being challenging is one reason, but the other one is the staff actually hiding the real gaps. So I have worked in environments where, for example, with IT, they were actually fixing during the test, quickly fixing the recovery, the procedures, etc., because the procedures were actually wrong, but the staff who was doing the recovery of the system was thinking, oh my goodness, this is wrong. Let me just quickly do it manually. You know, I'll type in all the configuration and I'll just make it all work. But the root cause of that was still not fixed. You know, the fact that the documentation was not right was not fixed by him doing that quick workaround. So, yeah. So if you have a perfect outcome of a test, sometimes you can see it's actually not perfect at all, but people were hiding what was really going on. You know, the missing procedures or the lack of knowledge. So yeah, fantastic to see some more comments in the chat here. Information well received by staff. Should call tree test to be integrated with BCP? Very good question, Harry. The call tree test you can do as a dedicated test if you don't have enough time. Time is sometimes very limited with testing. You might have a real incident that can go for 2 days to recover, you know, all the bits and pieces. But in test environments, we don't accept that kind of time frame usually. We normally try to fix, go from the start to the finish of a test in a much smaller time frame, like 3 or 4 hours, and that's it. You know, so what we do is then sometimes split the call tree test from the actual BCP or DR test. If you do have time and you have a whole weekend to do testing, yeah, then by all means, you know, you do your call tree test, see how that result is. But all these things take extra time. And call tree test, whilst you think it might take, I don't know, 45 minutes to contact all the staff, in my experience, it's been on average 3 times longer, as in 3 times that time. So every time I've tested that kind of thing, it was 2.5 hours before I had full confirmation that all the staff had actually got the message. Because people leave messages, they send someone a text, they don't know if they've got it, they don't hear anything back, they hope they pass the message down to the next level down. If you're doing call tree tests, you've got a lot of assumptions usually during that test of things may have been passed on, we've left messages, but where is it now? And for that to be confirmed to the nth degree and seeing, hey, all the staff actually got the message, in my experience, it took 3 times the estimated time. So that's my only proviso. But in theory, you could, if you had plenty of time, it's a great thing to do. Integrate all your call tree testing, integrate all the rest of it. We actually initiate testing with CMTs, like desktop testing. We tend to initiate that with SMS notifications and so on, or notification via email, and they have to, because in reality, if you do a simulation, people are not sitting there waiting in a boardroom to start making decisions, right? Like a CMT doesn't just sit there during a real life incident waiting for that to happen. But in testing, we often find people, inviting the CMT to a certain location to start doing the rehearsal, the BCP test. And actually what you should do is initiate it with an SMS and then also really craft the story so that it seems like, oh yeah, this SMS comes from the building manager, for example, or from IT to say, hey, something's happened, we quickly need emergency purchase process to be approved. And to see then what happens with that if the CMT gets initiated after that kind of symptom, because often an incident doesn't start with the full-blown knowledge being known. It usually starts with some symptoms, some small symptomatic things. And then suddenly you find, hey, this has been escalated to this person, that person. And the facilitator now heard about it. We should probably initiate invoke the plan. But it's always based on little bits of information. And testing, we should not make so perfect that everybody's sitting in the room, in the crash management team boardroom, waiting for the first incident to happen. It's not like that in real life. So try to make that a little bit more realistic sometimes. Another question there from Harry is, in the event that call tree test fails and didn't complete within the stipulated time, do we need to consider the BCP test fail as well? My approach to any of these tests are actually more rehearsal. It's more exercise. So pass and fail, I don't use with any of this. I've seen it used, and I have used it once or twice when it comes to technical testing, as in, did the system data be, restored in the right time, because the prediction was it would be restored in 60 minutes, and the actual time was, for example, 90 minutes. Is that then a pass or fail? In theory, you could do that. But when it comes to CMT type rehearsals, BCP testing in the people sense, I would not use pass-fail at all. It really makes people too stressed. They over-prepare. They get, they come to work with or they go back from work the night before with, all their big folders under their arm or in their smartphone. They've copied the whole BCP and started studying the night before because they want to look good, And whilst it's good that they study the BCP, I'm just saying it's not really a realistic test, and I certainly wouldn't want to use pass-fail for that kind of situation. So that's the answer there. Yeah, but it's if you have a test scope of 5 different outputs, including your call tree test, including your BCP test for a certain business process, if that's the case, well, yeah, you could theoretically say this one went better than the other, or we scored a certain rating on it. You might have some scoring system where you say we're scoring 8 out of 10 or 7 out of 10 or 3 out of 10 or something, but the ratings and the pass-fail type things are not too useful, I find. So that's a whole bunch of ways to measure your success of your test. I'm going to leave that with you, but you can see here some things that you guys mentioned as well, like were the systems ready within the RTO, what you thought it would be. And other things are, how did staff experience the exercise using evaluation forms like the Survey Monkey with just 5 or 6 questions to ask if they were pre-informed properly, if they know what to do, if they know where the BCP lives. A couple of questions like that. Quickly put that in a digital evaluation tool and get the answers, and even pronounce the answers straight after or at the end of your exercise. And what did people think of the test scenarios, for example? That's in there as well here towards the end. The final point is the most important message there. You are testing processes, not people. So if a person doesn't play the perfect role, it's the fault of the process. Somehow that person has not been trained properly, or they were not engaged, or they were not involved when the whole process was defined. They didn't want their name on there, perhaps. So you're testing the process. And if people are making mistakes, it's the fault of the actual process. Like I said, the exercise test review report template I'm going to leave with you. That's just a sample of how you can document test results. I mean, this is very standard. You can also find that in any project management methodology, that type of thing. Yeah, you can see here the activities in scope and so on, so on, so on. System checks, additional test results. And you could have things in there like the timing of the exercise and HR involved, as in the people involved. staff involved, and assumptions and so on. And then some appendices like photos of the exercise for documents. How shall I say? For proving that you have done the exercise down the track. And a few other templates that you can find in there. Now, we often get asked to do observation of testing as well. If we don't run the test ourselves, we often get asked to observe, because that means the BC facilitator can actually play their role. And it also gets usually done because of audit purposes, or to see how your organization compares to other organizations, like for benchmarking. Other awareness creation methods. We've now done testing and rehearsals. Okay, you also need to think about other ways to train people. Could be face-to-face interactive group training, webinar style, hard copy document provision, physical reminders, interactive desktop training, lots of different ways to do all of that. And if you can make it part of the KPIs, as someone mentioned earlier, the performance reviews, then you can also get somewhere and actually really, it increases the chance of awareness. And here are some ideas on what to cover in those awareness programs. Some questions you can put in there, including things like media response policy. And could also be aspects related to emergency response. And then, of course, things like assembly points and who the staff should inform and who will inform them, that kind of these. Now, maintaining and tracking staff awareness is important. It's not something optional. In most of the standards, this is from the APRA standard, which is from Australia, but the BNM from the BNM, the Bank Negara standard for BCM also has requirements where you have to train staff and make staff aware of their role. You can't just have one BCP manager sitting there, and writing a whole plan and that's it. They need, you need to be able to prove that you have trained the staff too. And this is some of the tools that you might find useful. This is a platform that we built in-house, but you can actually see that there's some interactive questions in there. If you want to train the general staff in this, we use quite a lot of these sorts of tools, and it could include emergency management procedures as well, or you can do that together with your workplace health and safety colleagues and actually build a combined emergency response and business continuity management kind of content. Right, so that was in terms of the content, that particular step. I'm just looking at the time. It's 3:15, I believe. Yes, 3:15. So perfect timing. What I would like to do is hand you guys the template that I need you to fill in. I'll do the same thing as I did earlier, where I'll create the subgroups, the breakout session groups, whilst you guys are going for your coffee break. But the instruction on this is basically that we're going to plan for a major rehearsal. So for your subgroup, I would like you to pick a fictitious organization with a fictitious name, a fake name, and a fictitious industry that you might want to invent. You might say, I don't know, I might make a girls team. You might want to have a shoe factory or a handbag factory or something. Or you might have a boys team that make, I don't know, fast cars or something, fast vehicles. So, and I'm not putting stigmas on girls or boys. There's lots of girls who like fast cars too, but you know what I'm saying. Like, we'll make some teams, and then each team can come up with an idea of a company and an industry that they work in, and then a particular scenario that you're going to use for your test. And that scenario, I'm going to give you a handout to work with. That scenario looks like this. Let me go and grab it. I mean, the scenario template looks like this. It is. This one here. So I'll share that handout first up. It basically has a whole bunch of things that could go wrong. It's not the most happy handout I've ever made. It basically has everything that could happen to your business. Or what we can imagine. The first scenario, consequence scenario, is lots of staff, and there may be a whole bunch of different reasons why that might happen. And you probably recognize some of these from the risk matrix. The next one was lots of buildings or physical items. You know, and again, a whole heap of incidents that could cause those. The next scenario is, of course, loss of IP, then loss of voice, and loss of external supplier. And then there's a sixth scenario that's a bit miscellaneous in some ways, but that is an unexpected increase in demand for your services. So what kind of incidents could that be? And what I'd like to do with that is that for your fictitious organization in your group, you're going to come up with a combination scenario, like a couple of different aspects, ideally 4 or 5 of these examples of incidents. And you're going to determine, are you going to test it live or simulated in that integrated kind of test? So what you might do is select one of these and then, I don't know, 2 of these things that are related, like power failure could be related to, I don't know, I guess, small fire on site that can cause a power failure. You know, like you can pick one of the top and then 2 of these ones, or you can pick them all from the top, or you can pick all from the bottom. There's a whole heap of options there, you know, in the next page as well. So it's randomly, you can think about all the ones you want to pick. Ideally 4 or 5 different ones with your group, and yeah, and then make a logical flow of it. So ideally those 4 or 5 different points or incidents, they actually are logically have a connection with each other, or a cause and effect of each other or something. Or you could have one completely random thing that happens on the same day. Murphy's Law kind of does exist, you know. So yeah, so if that makes sense. So you're free to choose 4 or 5 of these ones in a combination and make a story that makes sense. And you can choose live or simulated as I mentioned here. So that's your first mission. So let me make those breakout groups, and then for each group, you can make a name of your organization and a industry and choose that scenario. That's the first exercise for after coffee. So let me see what time it is now. So it's 3:20. So let's come back at 3:30, 3:35 and start on that work. By then I'll have the great breakout sessions prepared. Now, if anyone drops out of the breakout, I will try to recreate the group. If that doesn't work for whatever reason, try to come back to the plenary session. So for that whole group to leave your breakout, and then use the plenary space, the space we're now in all together, use that space for your subgroup to continue your discussions. Yeah, because it sometimes happens with the breakout sessions. I also wanted to say, in the breakout sessions, you're also able to share your screen. So if you are the one coordinating it for your breakout group, and you want to share the screen with others so that they can see what you're typing, that is possible technically. I've seen 2 of the groups today do that already. So I can't remember exactly what the buttons look like, but you can actually use share and then go in there. Yeah, or share screen, I think it might be. So any questions? So the coffee break starts now. I think it was already announced. So around 3:35, if you can, 3:35, please be back and start work. Now, before, if you guys are still there, I'm going to share now that handout so that you can download that. And that's the one over here. Yeah, so that's this one over here. That's in Word and in PowerPoint. So can you please download this before you take your coffee break, if you haven't left yet? And otherwise, we'll share it again if needed, okay? So enjoy your coffee break. Please download the file, and we'll speak soon. I'll make those breakout sessions for you guys now. You guys are all back in the main session. I heard a lot of fun discussions going on in those breakout rooms. So I just wanted to hear from each group, what scenario did you pick and what company or industry did you choose? let me just go to my representatives here. So we have 3 teams for this one. And the first team, Saravana, I know you had some trouble unmuting yourself, but luckily I was able to help you with that. Are you able to share with us what scenario did you pick, what industry, and yeah, just to give us some idea of that. I'm just going to unmute you now. Just a second. Yes, Saravana, can you hear us?
Hi everyone. Okay. So this time we choose for a company called AA, means it's an airport actually. AA Airport.
AA Airport, yeah.
Yes. Okay. So our airport name is AA. Where I'm not sure what meaning of AA it's naming based on our team name, AA team. Okay. So in airport actually, what we think, which is we discuss among the teams, where we choose a most significant threat for the airport is bomb or terrorist attack. What are the similar response plans required here actually? Okay, okay. So okay, I think I may explain on the bomb threat only. So okay, when there's a bomb threat can be triggered in a different form actually. So where the airport receive a call related to the bomb threat, basically the counter staff or the customer service staff have received a call from unknown people where there's a bomb set in the airport actually, and will be exposed to distance to distance. Somehow in our AA airport actually we already have a response plan for the bomb threat, where we have educated and awareness provided to all the level of staff, so how to respond on this kind of a call actually. So we are in the responding to bomb threat for the staff, we have a set of questions which they need to ask the threat, the bomb threat, the bomb caller, to ensure to make sure that information is that as much as information we can gain from the bomb threat, then what are the motives? The example, what are the motives they are setting a bomb into in the airport, and what kind of a bomb actually, what time it exposed actually, and where as much as information from the caller about the bomb actually. So where this can help the local authority or our local emergency response team to react and ensure the priority to the safety of the staff. So the next where once they identify the information, the bomb threat actually is one of the may create panic or another situation where most critical situation than the bomb, but then the threat actually. So it may create a panic between staff, between the customers, and at the same time also may other incidents with the unseen incident may happen also actually. So to avoid all this, where we have trained all the staff to ensure that they may communicate kind of the threat to the superior or to their head of department, where the head of department will trigger or will convey the similar message to the crisis management teams or emergency response team to take over the situation. So once the situation, immediately the crisis management teams or the crisis leader will activate the BCP, where all the people in the building required to evacuate to the safety place or to the assembly point actually. So once we've done that, we will immediately trigger or immediately contact the local authority, like emergency response teams, like bomb squad teams or policemen, so once the bomb squad or policemen arrive at the location or at the incident place, and they will take over the situation. Then the instruction and the further instruction and staff safety all will take over by the policemen or the local authorities.
Yeah, that's great. Very good integrated scenario with lots of aspects to it. You're involving some emergency services. You got that bomb scare, and different impacts of that. So fantastic effort. Go on.
Also means on the communicating to the stakeholders. It's not only internal staff safety, also the customers and public safety as well.
Yeah.
So we need to broadcast to them as well.
Yeah, and then the reputational damage that can come from that if you don't handle it well. So there's lots of challenge in that one. Did you pick anything to be tested live, or was everything simulated?
Should be live actually. It's a very significant threat, bomb threat or like a terrorist attack.
So you're going to actually get someone to make that call and then respond. Yeah, that's a very good idea. You know, you can quite easily do that live.
Yes, exactly. Yes.
Yeah. All right, great. Thank you so much. Now, next team, let me have a look. Breakout session. The next team, we had Iswan as a team leader for this one. Let me just check. Iswan, I'm going to unmute you.
Hi.
Hi, how are you?
Fine. So, Happy Rice Factory. This is the factory who produce the rice for the consumer. So, as a background, we tend to do the simulation exercise. Okay. So, based on the scenario of a few scenarios, one of that scenario number 6, unexpected increase in demand. So, meaning that we have the special rice which is not affected by the insect. We use the fertilizer, the good fertilizer. So this problem, the increase of demand will lead to the other continuity problem, I would say. So due to unexpected increase of demand, so if we try to simulate the situation into the scenario number 1, loss of staff, meaning that you have to cater with the current demand. Maybe some of the staff are not satisfied with the current pay rate or whatsoever. So we simulate the situation. So meaning that the operation should be start about 2 or 3 hours. Then we try to get the some of gap analysis on if production stops at certain X hours, then how much impacted to the financial of the company. Okay. So the other part is due to dissatisfaction of the staff, so it lead to the theft, it lead to the gruesome with the staff, with the management and so on. So maybe the situation of the small fire by some of the dissatisfaction stuff. So moving forward, maybe due to the external suppliers, because this is the unexpected situation. So maybe the packaging, the plastic bags of the rice also coming late to us to make the package of the rice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Good. Some a really different approach again. And you guys are doing everything pretty much simulated, right? Is that correct?
Yeah.
Mostly simulated, not live.
Yeah.
Cool.
Because we need to understand further from the different angle of aspects, because from the supplier perspective, from the internal staff perspective, and so on.
Yeah, that's good. Fantastic. And so rice, right? Like that's a manufacturer of rice. So there are a lot of countryside locations as well, etc. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Yeah. Fantastic. Thank you. Next group was Noor. I know that there's been some people who said halfway through that there were some problems entering the breakout session again, but I hope that Noor had a few people around her, at least one team buddy, to do this session. Noor, can you hear us?
Hello?
Hi.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yeah, so me and our group situation is just a simple one, that is a ex-refinery operation halted due to flood during monsoon season that lasted around 2 to 3 weeks. So this similar situation also is based from one of my experience before. It does happen, especially if you located at the east coast side of West Malaysia, which is around Terengganu or Kelantan. So should I read some of the consequences scenario, the example of incidents that could happen.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, yeah, for example, the consequence of loss of staff. So inability to find skilled staff. For example, your welder or anyone who are very specific on their skill. Due to inaccessibility, most of the problem is due to inaccessibility of staff from their home to the plant, which is due to the flood. The road closure and so on. And delay in sign off by the stakeholder management, significant decrease in employee engagement, and loss of executive due to due to inaccessibility to workplace. Then loss of building and other physical items include road closures, public transport failure, some power failure also could happen because during the flood, during this heavy flood, the pump that circulating around the power grid, for example, in Malaysia we call it TNB, the one who supply the electricity to the whole Malaysia. The pump can be malfunction. Does impact not only just the residential area but also the industrial area. And then so this is making our aircon or hatchback also unusable. Due to flood also there will be like thunderstorm. So if it's heavy lightning on the building, it can also cause spark and eventually fire. And then of course water contamination and drainage or sewer problem. And
health and well-being of staff, of course, and concern.
Yes. And those most of us, the safety problem like smoke detector failure, emergency exit, lift failure due to unavailability of the electricity, and then some, of course, wear and tear and structural damage due to the flood water, and possibility of explosion, and some very strong wind. And in terms of loss of IT system and access to those servers and so on, it could be some hardware or software malfunction, and also an inaccessibility of the IT technician, probably from vendor to our site. For example, if one of our server in our that connected to the instrumentation in the plant, so you cannot rectify it immediately. And then loss of voice communication, probably line telephone or internet problem due to the wiring and so on. Then loss of external supplier, for example, temporary supply performance, because we are unable to get the supplier the delivery of our item, for example, for repair and so on, due to accessibility to the plant location. Supplier staff system majorly affected by disaster and indirect supply chain disruption. Okay. And as better increase in demand for our service, let's say because this is an ex-refinery, so it should be providing a good stream of petrol, which is the gas for our vehicle and so on. So probably the public needs the demand probably increase for our services due to the driving time, and also some of the probably mismanagement due to confusion in direction and so on, due to the panic or that could occur in the organization, and change in legislation impacting on service or product offering and business opportunities. So probably we need to change in the time of the crisis. We need to renegotiate our contract and so on. And there will be some defect or product recall because it happens because usually during the monsoon season, our feedstock has lots of water, and those can affect our final product quality. So this could be, so our customer might experience might provide us complaints. And also due to let's say our product is not meeting the spec and so on, there will be some
Complaints.
social media gossips or rumors that can impact the reputation of the company. So that's it.
Wow, lots of impacts. Thank you very much, because you guys went really realistically through all those multi-layered impacts, knock-on effects or flow-on effects, you can call them. So that's really good effort. Thank you very much. Can you see how interesting and also enjoyable it is actually to craft a really good scenario and to choose which bits you're going to do live and other things you're going to do more simulated, and actually really think about what is realistic and what works for that organization? Hopefully you enjoyed that.
Yes.
I will share now, and I know that there's a few people who had some trouble with breakout groups. Let me just double check that. If we reinitiate them, if then the problem is over, hopefully. What I wanted to show you is a test template for a script, basically. So I'm going to download that for you. Upload that for you so you can download it onto your computer as well. And what that is actually the next step. This will take more time normally. It will take maybe a couple of days with the right people involved, or fairly secretly. You could do it as well if you don't want everybody to know the scenario of your test. But what I'm sharing with you here, the file, if you can please download that. What I'm sharing with you is something where you can really now take that scenario that you just built and then start working on the script. How will you do that actual simulation test or the live test? So all the different parts you can think about, the challenges you can give people, whether you're going to disclose it beforehand or not, or all the surprise elements and everything else. I would like you to all work on that for about 10 minutes on the front page, just the front page, if you don't mind. And whatever time you've got left, maybe we'll give it 15 minutes because we don't have too much detail to cover after that. But I didn't want to finish right on 5 o'clock. I just wanted to finish a little bit earlier because some people need to go and then we can say goodbye at least. So I wanted to give you guys about 10 to 15 minutes for doing the first page of that document I'm just sharing. And then I'll call you guys back. We don't do a recap on it, but I just want you to have the experience to deal with this particular handout. And then we'll wrap up with the slides and take a group photo digitally, hopefully with the whole screen. If you guys can all turn your camera on in about 15 minutes, that would be great, just as a final goodbye, because you've done a lot of great work and really enjoyed what you guys have done so far, and especially this last session so far. So I'll give you, like I said, 10 to 15 minutes to do something with that front page of that document. Let me just 1 second. I hope you've all downloaded that by now. So so it's basically the front page, and then any other sections that you get time for, that's fine as well if you want to keep discussing a little bit more, depending on how much you get done in that moment. Okay, so I'll just double check the breakout groups one more time, and let's see. Harry was lost somewhere. I've added you again to Team C, double C. So please accept the breakout invitation and unmute after that, or I can unmute you guys all beforehand because last time there was a few people having trouble. And I'm going to initiate that session. Enjoy your discussion.
Yeah, it's too much of noisy. Too much of noise actually.
Will disappear very quickly.
Now back to.
Hello.
Yeah, now much better.
Guys, I have created a new breakout session for you guys so that you have no background noises and things. I don't know if you received an invite for that. Did you receive anything? For example, did you receive any info for the
She just received.
AAA? It's called Team AA. Ah, yeah, I can see it's just started. Yeah. Okay. Okay, everyone, thanks for doing all the work. I can see you guys are all back in the main session now. I have just shared again that document, the one some people didn't download it yet, so I'm just sharing that again. But please save that document that you see in the file transfer right now. I hope you enjoyed a little bit of this preparation, and I hope you see the value in this script, you know, in that sample, in that template, because when you build your business continuity exercises, it's good to have a good overview of all the challenges you're going to build in, so that nobody in your rehearsal is actually feeling bored, and that you've got the right level of surprise challenges in there. So yeah, that was that. I'm now going to share my screen again with you, and that's just a final couple of slides. So basically, the final set of slides is all about maintenance and continual improvement. So once you build your framework, your 8-step wheel, you need to have that central step of maintaining and improving your process. And so, just 1 second. Just beep. Just give me a second. Yeah, that's fine. So yeah, you need to think about how to maintain all the steps of that wheel regularly, and therefore the shorter and sharper your plan overall is, the easier to get that into people, that they need to maintain those different steps with you. So in your overall improvement of the process, you can build some KPIs. Some of you guys already mentioned KPIs before. You could have that also per division. It doesn't have to be per person. It could be per division, per department. And what you'll find in here, for example, is key performance indicators. Once you've done that review on this screen, you know, you ask the business unit some questions, or you reviewed how much they've participated. You basically look in there and then say, okay, what are these percentages? What are the ratings for each department? And how are they answering these questions? So have they participated in testing, for example, and those sorts of things. And then here, that's the result. So you see that you set yourself a target, a threshold, and then for each division, you can determine, did they exceed the target, which is green, or did they not make the threshold, which is red? You can see that here, for example. Or were they in between, which is their ambers, you know, the yellow ones, which is over here, you know, the division G and H, for example. So, and then you get some averages and things. So this is kind of a nice little list. And once again, you can review all these slides after this session when you can revisit the recordings. You can have a look at it and see how you can use this in your environment. These are just example questions, right? Like you can add things to that. But I find this quite useful if you have about 10 questions or criteria to see how your organization has been participating in BCP. And then the final couple of slides are about the framework that I normally implement with organizations. That picture of the wheel you see in there. I basically normally build a portal for business continuity, and we hang a lot of different things off that. It's like an umbrella approach, and we hyperlink existing documents that the organization already has, so it actually doesn't create too much work for everybody to do. And we then allocate responsibilities for different parts of the BCP to different people who are already working on parts of those things as part of their daily work. So, for example, facilities may already be involved in things like maintaining diesel generator procedures or something. That one is just hyperlinked then to what they already have. The same for corporate affairs or marketing. They have maybe some scripts for crisis communication. Those things can be hyperlinked, and that team, that corporate communication team, can then actually maintain that over time. So that reduces the load on your BC facilitator. So the final discussions, we sort of thought there were maybe some optional discussions. We, of course, had quite a lot of chats about COVID-19 and the next stage, or the actions that have come out so far. I've already shared that document this morning with you, what you guys put on the board yesterday. So that we talked quite a lot about that. We talked a bit about benchmarking with what we just had with that KPI situation. There's other things we could have discussed, and I'm very happy to start a discussion in LinkedIn if you'd like. If you guys are finding me on LinkedIn, please do so. And we can, or you can initiate or suggest maybe that we have a discussion in there about some of these other things over time, like use of social media for BCP, and choosing a recovery site provider. It's basically, the problem is with some of these things, they're relevant to some people and they're not really relevant to others if you don't have a recovery site provider or you're not looking for that, for example. So I'd rather keep this fairly flexible. And then, yeah, if there's specific interest in one of these topics, let me know, and we'll have some discussions also over the LinkedIn. And the final point was about fast-moving disaster scenarios. I think you guys have relatively a lot of experience with the floods in Malaysia that have occurred, well, frequently. So you've had to deal with those fast-moving disaster scenarios. COVID-19 was a slow-moving one, where we all had time to get out of the building. We all had time to, you know, do something about our notifications and setting people up at home. And so, yeah, it was a little bit of a different type. But we can have some of these discussions on LinkedIn, like I said. If you'd like to keep in touch, I'm always very happy to help. And you can always ask for some specific questions. Also, if there are a couple of specific slides in my presentation that you really would like a copy of for your internal use in the organization, please let me know which specific ones. If there's 3 or 4, you know, that's fine. I can't share the entire presentation. It's just too much intellectual property in there, unfortunately, and we built that over the years. Plus, there's some external intellectual property in there. But if you have specific interest, absolutely tell me. And I hope absolutely that I've shared the most important things already in the handouts. You know, your BCP on a page, your disaster testing template that you just used, some of those things that we already provided. And normally they're commercial products as well, I'd like to say again, you know. So we basically made an arrangement with Zenit that you guys get that for free, but as part of the course. But it's, yeah, normally they're quite substantial pieces of intellectual property. So, something big there. So I would like to give the word to Marion from Zenit. Before we do a group photo where we all get ourselves on the screen, I'd like to give her the word to say something about the next bits that we're offering, because you guys were so willing to do this workshop remotely online. And Marion would like to share a few things about the next event.
All right. Can you hear me?
Mm-hmm.
All right. Thank you so much, Rizka, for the 2 days. I hope you all gained insightful about knowledge about BCM, and I am very sure that you all enjoyed Rizka's session. So we will be having a meetup 1 month post workshop that will be online. So we'll be combining the KL and the Brunei. We will know when we are actually deciding the date. And once everything has subsided and Rinska is able to travel, we'll be having a meetup session with Rinska, so you all can bring out the questions. So can be like a mini tea gathering with Rinska, so you all can actually post questions that time as well. So before we end, I would like you all to help me fill in this evaluation form. Please let us know what you all think, whether this class was too long or it's too tiring. So this form will be submitted to the HRDF. So kindly fill in the form. I hope I can see all 10 responses there. And that's all for me. I would like to thank you all so much for joining us on the online session. Thank you so much. I know it's a bit tough changing physical to online, and it's a technical workshop, but I'm sure that Rizka made it look simple, and I'm sure she actually managed to make it as interesting as we promised you for the physical workshop. So that's all for me. Kindly fill in the Google form, and yeah, thank you so much. So Rizka, do you have anything?
Yeah, I just wanted to share this final slide, which has links in it for resources you might be able to use. You know, the Disaster Recovery Institute, the Business Continuity Institute, the World Health Organization, and FEMA, the Federal Emergency Management Agency in America. Some of those things, yeah, you might be able to use, and they're basically websites of organizations that are either government or you know, they're independent, they're not commercial. So that would be something that you can use. And these are my LinkedIn details. Now I'm going to put the screen up where I can see all of you. I'm going to try and see if we can, anybody who has a camera, can you please turn it on? I would like to see everyone say goodbye. And you can also say goodbye to each other that way, of course. Let's see. And normally we do a group photo, but this is the alternative that we can do. So please go for it. Most of you, those with no background knowledge. So if you all want to say anything, hey, cool. Yeah? Let me see how we can get all of this big screen. Do you guys know? Let's see. Time at the moment. Full screen maybe. Speaking away. Oh yeah. Let's see quite a few of you now. I hope you all have a really wonderful and that you enjoyed the session, that you learned something. And if anyone wants to say anything else or share something, anything else, just give me 1 second. Oh. Ah, there's a lot of screen blocking going on here. I hope you enjoy seeing each other as well. You guys did a great job in the shared session. You're really fantastic. So, and maybe some of you guys knew each other, but not many. Probably, you know, you had probably quite a few new friends that you made. So that's really nice. If anyone wants to share anything, please go for it. And otherwise, we can all say goodbye, I think.
Okay.
Enjoy the rest of the afternoon. Any questions, please present it. We'll be happy to help. I think Marion and I would like to say goodbye.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you so much, Ricky. Bye.
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 Bye. Thank you, Rizky.
Thank you, Rizky.
Thanks a lot for everything.